They think there are not enough creative content creators in Malaysia.
Really?
So yeah, not enough, because I think for a lot of cases that the content that you see is very dry, very dry. It doesn't resonate with the online audience, and there are too much selling elements. For marketers, I think they have to think about selling online. It's really different. They always have to think about building that funnel first. The bigger your funnel, the higher the chances that you would be able to create or generate sales lah. So even if you think about the amount of content that you see online on a daily basis, I mean, you're bombarded with so much information, right? But how do you create a content that people would actually stop scrolling on their device and see what they're actually offering?
Okay, so let me just quickly introduce you. You're Richard, right? Of course, you can make your introduction again later. You've worked many years in Beijing, China.
Yes, I lived there for 10 years.
10 years, wow. And you were trained in electronic engineering, right?
Yes, that is my background.
So how did that transition go from engineering into marketing, into storyteller that you are right now?
So when I was still in Beijing, right, I wanted to find side income lah. As you know, as I mentioned to you, the cost of living is quite high, right?
Yeah.
So I found a business opportunity to run an iPhone repair business
in China.
In China, yes, correct.
Oh, okay.
So I picked up some of the skills in terms of like entrepreneurship skills, like digital marketing, social media management, customer support. So there was of course, there's an evolution to that line.
So what were you doing in Aerodyne? What's your main role like?
They were growing quite rapidly, right? So of course, if you look at the founder Kamarul, I think he's really extremely busy. His schedule is packed. So he wanted to make sure that there's a person who will be able to handle all the inquiries that goes to the CEO's office. So he hired me as the VP for partnership and ecosystem development. So when I was there, of course, helping establish partnership with partners from around the world, even working with some of the big four companies. I think EY was offering this entrepreneurship of the year, right? So of course, under me some sort, but I saw this as a marketing opportunity for Aerodyne as well. So of course, managed to get Kamarul to win 2 awards from the EY entrepreneurship of the year. And of course, I will also work with the Drone Industry Insights, which is the independent body that surveys and all the drone-based solutions companies or drone companies around the world. So managed to work with them and brought Aerodyne to #1 ranking. And of course, I did propose to founder to Kamarul that, hey, maybe we should be really serious about setting up a marketing team, because Aerodyne has never been doing
marketing at all.
It's always a lot of organic stuff coming. It's B2B, right? So yeah, I think he eventually agreed. So I said, okay, let's propose for the CMO role. After he had some thoughts, and then he agreed, and then so I took up the CMO role. Already started working with the global marketing team. Aerodyne has subsidiaries, right, in a couple of countries. So one of them in Dubai. They have a good marketing team there, a digital team. So we were working together. So that was the role.
You started doing a lot of storytelling on social media, right? And was this like before, when you still at Aerodyne, or after you're out of Aerodyne, before you started all this storytelling?
I was doing it for quite a while, actually. The way I do it is different. I think the breakthrough, only happened like back in April.
So what made the traction came about?
As I mentioned, the storytelling part I've been doing it for quite a while. Different format, experimenting different ways of doing it. So I think back in April this year, so I look at my Twitter. I said my Twitter has very little followers. I think back then it was like 1,000 followers. I said, okay, let's see how we can grow this still using the storytelling, but let's try to highlight Malaysian success stories. My first story was about this one, about NASA, but the lady.
I saw this one.
Right?
I saw this one.
Yeah. So I said, okay, let's try to highlight the Malaysian working at NASA. So I googled for Malaysian NASA. I did not find anything highlighted by the media. Only found the person that actually on NASA's website So when I checked her background, so it's quite interesting how she got into NASA. Came from a small town in Muar in Johor, and eventually became the deputy chief technologist at NASA. So they're putting them into Twitter format, getting all this information online. So that actually blew up. So that actually went viral. I said, okay, this is probably a good way to grow my Twitter followers lah.
Okay.
Then of course started to highlight more Malaysian companies. So it grew lah over the last few months. Now I think I'm about at almost 40,000 today, 40,000 followers
On
within
Twitter.
on Twitter alone. Yes.
Do
Yeah.
you
So
think a lot of Malaysians are using Twitter?
there are quite a lot. I'm
Like
quite
I don't
surprised.
actively use Twitter, and I know many people don't actually actively use Twitter, but they're mostly on Facebook, Instagram, maybe
Mm,
TikTok. But Twitter's like a
yeah.
forgotten social media platform.
Actually, you'll be surprised. There are actually quite a lot because those people on Twitter, they normally don't really interact. They don't normally talk. They just actually just watch
Consume.
consume content there lah. So in fact, a lot of people that I talked to, they said, "Oh, I've been following you on Twitter." I said, "Oh, okay." I thought they're following me on Facebook or somewhere. So apparently there are a lot of people on Twitter. But of course, Facebook is still the biggest, I think, in Malaysia.
Interesting. So how do you come up with these stories? Like okay, you mentioned you went into looking at the NASA story, right? But how do you find out like all these pieces? Do you have someone to help you out with it, or do you do it all by yourself?
No, I think so far it's just by myself. It's there are actually a lot. There are a lot of different sources. If you just use the right keywords, you would be able to find all these stories. And a lot of this even but just by looking at some of the as I drive on the street, on highways, I see these big banners, then say, okay, that's probably an interesting company to talk about. So of course, most recently I saw this banner about this Malaysia being the one of the countries in the world that provides robotic suit for rehabilitation. So they're actually
I see that along near Uptown.
When I saw it, I said, okay, maybe just write about this one. So of course that actually went quite viral. Even reached to the point of their CEO actually reaching out to their marketing team to reach out to me and invite me to go to their place. So it was quite interesting, quite eye-opening. A lot of interesting stuff actually happening on the ground that people don't really know about. So I think this is also a great opportunity for me, at least to tell more stories about what's happening in Malaysia.
I mean, I'm just want to find out secret sauce, right? I mean, it's there on the billboard, right? But nobody cares, you know. But when you do it, right, is it because you condense it down into a easy to consume format that's easy to see, easy to browse, takes a few seconds, just up to a minute to understand the whole thing? Or what do you think that it makes people, interact and click with your content?
Yeah, I think it's the simplicity lah. Because as I put it on Twitter first, right? And then I do the lazy method of, maybe this is the secret sauce lah, lazy method of just screenshot it and put it on my Facebook. Then it's easy. It is easy actually for people to digest because I really simplify the content, short words, remove all the jargons as much as possible. Most marketers would say lah, tell as though you're telling this to a 5-year-old. Even I think for a lot of the non-English speaking audience are able to consume that kind of content as well, right? So I was quite surprised actually. So far it's working, but of course I'm now exploring other ways like how to make it even better. Started my TikTok account as well. That TikTok is actually growing quite fast. Managed to grow it to about 45,000 today.
Wow.
Fastest growing lah. I think I've never experienced any platform that can grow
that fast, huh?
Yeah.
Right. So speaking about marketers, right? You mentioned about marketers. What do you think marketers are doing wrong right now? I mean, there's so many marketers around. And being as a CMO person, being someone who has seen some traction on social media, right? You probably have an insight. What kind of mistakes marketers are making when they are doing their social media marketing or content marketing? There are a lot of marketers creating a lot of content, but not seeing any traction.
I think this is also based on my feedback with some of the industry leaders lah. They think there are not enough creative content creators in Malaysia.
Really?
So yeah, not enough. Because I think for a lot of cases that the content that you see is very dry, very dry.
Okay.
It doesn't resonate with the online audience, and there are too much selling elements. For marketers, I think they have to think about selling online. It's really different. They always have to think about building that funnel first. The bigger your funnel, the higher the chances that you would be able to create or generate sales lah. So even if you even if you think about the amount of content that you see online on a daily basis, I mean, you're bombarded with so much information, right? But how do you create a content that people would actually stop scrolling on their device and see what they're actually offering? So I think that is probably one of the biggest things that are missing in here in Malaysia. So, but you can see like some of the interesting social media platforms or pages like GSC, Mydin. They're actually being creative about it, the content. So that's why if you look at their number of followers, they're huge, big followers. And they're not actually talking about selling their tickets or selling their movies, but they talk about something else, which has elements of, like GSC, for instance. It's highly engaging. A lot of people, they're able to create that kind of traction. So similarly, like if you look at overseas social media pages like Red Bull, for instance. Red Bull, they sell energy drinks, right? But if you look at their social media pages, they don't really talk about the
energy drinks.
Yeah, they talk about
lifestyle,
sports or lifestyle around. Yeah, that's those kind of things. Daredevils, right? I think a lot of the marketeers also tend to just following what the corporate leaders are telling them to do. And that's a huge mistake, because the corporate leaders don't necessarily know how things work on social media, unless if they are really they have built the level of influence on social media already. So they tend to just do whatever they have in their corporate brochures and just literally copy and paste the content on social media, which doesn't work at all, because it can be like too wordy and it's really talking about them, not talking about the audience. So those are probably some of the glaring mistakes happening over and over again. If you look at a lot of the corporate social media pages, they're really boring, and so you don't really want to engage. You just look at energy.
So with your brand, right, you are posting and also storytelling from a very personal point of view, like Richard is doing the storytelling, right? What would you advise like a company, right, who does not have like a persona like you, like they are a company, like maybe like GSC? What would you advise them to do? Should they come out with like that personal touch, like someone, a spokesperson, or should they speak as their brand? What would you advise sort of companies?
I think there are a lot of ways of doing it. I think the opportunities, as I mentioned, like how do you humanize the brand? So for instance, I'm Richard lah. Then how do I humanize it? I humanize it as myself. But I think for companies, right, they also want to see opportunities. How do they humanize the brands? By putting more people, telling more about the stories about the company, less descriptive about what the company, but more telling and more showing about what the company is. And they have to think about, it's always about the audience. It's not about themselves. And if you look at a lot of the corporate social media pages, it's always talking about themselves. People do not actually want to know what you do. They actually want to know what you can do for them. So I think that's like, for instance, if you're a company that's offering products, see how it can offer you better benefits, and even up to the point that how do you simplify the message of the company, make it less technical, more visuals. Some of the corporate social media pages as well, if you look, too much text, and people, they don't want to interact with those kind of posts, right? So I think even Facebook at one point in time, if you wanted to create ads, they mention about not putting too much text overlay on
videos.
If you want to put some text, that's all right. But if you're putting text all of it, I think the engagement will be much lower. Of course, they have removed that requirements already, but I think psychologically, I think
effects, right?
I think people would still skip those kind of posts lah. So, but I think it's also good to have few people in the companies who are probably good in social media. They know things to post about, and really putting the people behind it. I mean, the elements of people. They could also put more photos of people in action behind the scenes. I think that's actually quite interesting, because if you work for companies of any size, you can create a lot of stories from some of the items that you see on your table. Just create stories around it. I mean, at the end of the day, you're not actually intent to sell immediately, but whatever you post online, it is really about creating that, planting the ideas into your audience head. At one point, when they have that problem, when they think about who is the potential company who's able to help them, they'll think about you immediately. So they won't think about anyone else, because they remember stories. They remember the story about this XYZ company. So they then they would actually look for you lah. And of course, they can also promote like user-generated contents. I think that is actually quite powerful because people are really talking about your brand. You're not actually talking about them. And if you could highlight, if you could reshare some of these posts online, I think that would could. But of course, and also other things would be leveraging on social media platforms like LinkedIn. LinkedIn is prioritizing carousel posts at the moment. So, yeah, I think those are just some of the things. And of course, I think one of the things that they also have to think about is they have to be bold and ready to experiment in different types of format. They have to be bold if they want to really stand out online, right? They have to be bold and ready to experiment. You can look at how Ryanair is doing it. Ryanair, you can check on the TikTok. They're not talking about the planes. They do a lot of memes actually. They have very, very, very high engagement.
Speaking about being bold, do you have like haters?
Haters? Oh yeah, of course. I think there are, because I talk a lot about positivity, right? I mean, there's already enough negativity online. So when I talk about positivity, of course, the people who are, the haters would actually come in as well once in a while and comment and say, "Oh, this is toxic positivity." Okay, I mean, they can define it. They can define it whatever you want, but to me, it's always about focusing on what you believe it's you lah, and how you can actually create value for others. So I'm gonna stay on my path. Keep telling those good stories that would actually help to even drive, I think, the country forward lah.
I think a lot of people are reluctant to post things online or even tell stories online because they are scared of haters and getting backlash on their opinions and also their stance. Okay, so you talk about stories, right? And anything around your table can be turned to a story. So I want to do this as an experiment, right? After this call, what kind of story, teach me, right? What kind of story can I create from my interaction, my call with you? What can I post after this? What can I create after this? What would you advise someone like me to do right now? Take a picture of my setup or...
Well, you talk about Bangkok, right? What's happening in Bangkok at the moment? I think that is actually already a good story. You mentioned about the sandbags. How important sandbags are in controlling the flood in the city, because I think if you think about sand, it's just nothing. Like piece of sand is nothing, but if you gather them in large bulk and put them into bags, they actually become a good way to help control the flood. So you can talk about that. From there onwards, you can talk about unity. Then it gives you like a story of how a single piece of sand, when they are grouped together, they become stronger and they can help to control the flood, to achieve an objective. So you can tell that becomes sort of like a story itself, to how it can reflect to a country's unity, for instance. Example.
Okay.
Yeah.
I could try that later on to see how that works.
Just people, as I said, right? People, how do you make yourself stand out online by not telling about your products, not telling about your services, but telling about your story, so people can relate to it and they can immediately think about something meaningful. So I think that is really traditional marketing, to be honest.
So would you say your strategy, right, is to tell stories that are not directly related towards your products or services, but something that can relate back to the audience?
Yes, correct. That's correct.
And then when you build that liking, when you build that audience around you, would be interested to see what you have to offer.
Yes.
Is that what you do?
Yes, of course. As I mentioned, it's about building that funnel, right? So when you create that kind of story and people are actually attracted to that story, and then of course they will check your profile. And then on my profile, that's where I put that I'm a digital marketer, I provide this service. So I'm not really telling about, I'm a digital marketer, use my service. So when my potential customers or even leads approach me, they know that I storytell, and then they said, is there a way that you can tell the story about my company? So those kind of.
So how does the RKD monetizes? Do you help people based on a consulting basis, or do you also run like sponsored posts? Are you sort of like an influencer now yourself? What is like the model right now?
Yes, multiple models. So what you mentioned, all of those just now are true. So yes, so I come in as a consultant to them. So because some of them have their own marketing team already.
Yeah.
Sometimes they're just stuck. They're not sure how to move forward. So I would come in and I would advise them, okay, so this is probably what's going to work. What kind of content that they could create. So I put in a lot of the creative elements to it because I think creativity is very important. So if you really focus on your day-to-day tasks, right, you tend to lose that ability to think about what's creative. So I help them in the sense that I put in the creative content. And of course, I also help manage some of their social media
You
platforms.
manage it for them as well. Okay.
Manage them and help them to create the content, the posts. I also produce videos, storytelling videos, because I see a huge gap in at least in the Malaysian ecosystem. The corporate videos are really boring. Yeah. So it's always tell them about themselves.
Yeah.
Okay, we are this company. We have 1,000 people behind
Always
us.
me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Me is
Yeah.
not really talking about the audience, right? So that's why people, they really get turned off when they see corporate videos. I help them to produce these kind of videos, and the kind of video that I do is also storytelling, a lot of cinematic shots. Because I'm still working on a few videos at the moment. If I get consent from my client, I'll be posting on my Facebook.
Personal.
Right. Share about that one. So yes, I've been approached with some of the companies as well to sort of like become the influencer to tell about their programs, about their new products, because I think in Malaysia there's a lack of influencer in the tech space. Tech space,
yeah.
But if you talk about tech space, there are, but they do product reviews of gadgets and those kind of things. But if they talk about businesses, probably not so many as far as I know.
So you're in a very good position. Good for you.
Yeah, because I understood. I mean, I've been in the ecosystem for quite some time, right? So I know the gaps. Like I know what working at Magic, working at Cyberview, working at Aerodyne. So I saw that opportunity, so that's why I said, okay, I'm going to use this platform to plug in that gap, fill in that gap, and see how it can help more companies, more startup to push out their things that they're doing. I think there's a lot of opportunities in this space.
So for your posting on social media, do you have any like schedule when you post them? Do you have like a schedule or any tools you like to share with people that you're using?
Yeah, I'm not really have a fixed schedule because sometimes inspiration happens any time of the day, right? So when I have the ideas, of course, the ideas can come from anywhere. When I talk to people, when you drive on the street, so I have to make sure that I'm always ready to write them down. Of course, the easiest tool is the notes app on my iPhone, and just put some notes. And of course, I use Canva to do the editing, some of the simple graphic editing. I use SEMrush for SEO keywords. Yes, for keyword research for a few of my customers. I use this video editing tool called Vid.io. Vid.io is basically as an online video editing tool that simplifies the process of creating videos. And so it comes with ready footage that you can just drop in, ready background music. You can even do auto captioning. So it's quite neat. I think it helps in terms of creating storyboard for customers. So normally when people do storyboarding, right, they put them in that kind of format, doing visuals. So for us to accelerate the process, we created the whole storyboard in a video format already. So when we share it with customers, they say, wow, okay, they can already visualize it, like 70% of the work is already done. So it actually accelerates the process. They can consume that much faster, and we know where to fix them immediately, instead of like you already shared the storyboard, you already done the shooting, and then the customer doesn't like it. So that's actually help us in accelerating the process. The rest of the tools, I think you could find them quite easily online lah. But of course, if you look at emerging platform like TikTok, for instance, it has this additional software that you can use called CapCut. CapCut, you can do editing there as well, but smaller. But I think they have already made it online. You can go to CapCut.com, I think, and you can do your TikTok video editing on your laptop instead of on your smartphone.
Right? Yeah. I guess so online.
Yeah. So yeah, those are some of the basic tools lah. I think nothing sophisticated, to be honest, because ultimately it's about how do you create meaningful content for the customers. I think that's ultimately is the most important,
rather than the tools.
Yeah, I think the tools can come in once. I think I'm going to invest in better tools as my business grows. eventually. But I think for now it is actually quite adequate lah for now.
Right. Okay, I've got one last one for you. What is your number one advice for marketers?
Number one advice is to not to overthink. I think for a lot of people, they tend to overthink, like what should they put online, whether this is going to work or not. You never know. You never really
True.
never know. So I think that's what I learned over the years, creating a lot of content online. It's just putting it out there and see what works, what doesn't work. If it works, learn from it, enhance it every time, and eventually you'll get there. And if you want to ask second advice, it's always ready to experiment. I think because how the nature of social media or digital platforms, how the algorithms are being updated on a regular basis, you need to be able to experiment all the time, see what works. So that's very equally important. And of course, the creativity part is given. You have to really think about how do you make creative contents to make yourself stand out in a busy digital space.
Digital world.
Yeah.
That's great. Yeah, so thank you so much. It's been insightful to learn from you, and I'm going to try that little, maybe the sandbags, to see if that works or not. Thank you, Richard.
Yeah, but it's interesting what you're doing. I think there's I'm really looking forward for more content like this from people in the marketing space to create contents, especially coming in from this part of the world, because you see a lot of these coming in from the States, from Europe, Australia, some, but not so much from this part of the world. So hopefully you would be able to grow your audience as well.